In my last lecture, you learned about hypothesis and its related concepts. So, we are today proceeding further. Today, we are going to learn formulation of hypothesis. The whole focus would be on the formulation of hypothesis side. So, let's see how hypothesis can be formulated, how a question can be converted into hypothesis. So, just to revisit what hypothesis is actually. Hypothesis is an educated guess about something in the world around us. It should be testable either by experiment or observation. This is what we have learned in last lecture. So there are several examples, like a new medicine you think might work, that's a hypothesis. Like for a teacher, a new way of teaching might be better, that's a hypothesis. So this is what the hypothesis is. Just in few words, it is an educated guess which we have understood in previous lecture. Now, what scientific method of hypothesis formulation and testing is, that this actually is comprised of 6 steps. You can see in this diagram that these 6 steps are separated by one line between 3 steps and another 3 steps. So this upper side 3 steps are showing formulation of hypothesis, whereas the lower 3 steps are showing testing hypothesis. So in fact, this scientific method which is presented over here is formulation and testing of hypothesis. So the steps are like starting from identifying a problem, then studying that problem further through observation, through literature review, through reading, through studies, through theories, etc., and then further proceeding towards formulation of hypothesis. So these 3, half of this part of this diagram we will be trying to learn today. And then once we formulate hypothesis, then we conduct experimentation or test of that hypothesis. Then finally, after test, we decide we analyze the results, and further we make conclusion on the basis of those results. So this is how the scientific method of hypothesis formulation and testing goes. Now let's understand how a research question related to hypothesis, or what is similarity and differences between these two terms, because earlier also we have studied this statement that in fact there is hypothesis in the form of research question, or research form question is a form of hypothesis. So how they are different and how they are similar. So a research question is essentially a hypothesis asked in the form of question. It's not different than that. It is a kind of hypothesis which is asked in the form of question. But what is that? Why do we try to convert that question into hypothesis? Because question cannot be tested statistically, but the hypothesis can be. No statistical tools and techniques are made to test a question. All the tests and techniques, tools and techniques, testing hypothesis, null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis. That's why it is important to narrow down a research question to hypothesis which can be tested statistically or which can be studied reasonably. That is, compulsion to narrow down research question into research hypothesis. Now, let's see what are various steps which are, used in doing so, in converting a research question to hypothesis. As I told you earlier, that initially there is a problem which a researcher, comes across. Then he raises several questions, then further he tries to find out answers to those questions, and in that sequence, he builds up some hypothesis. So how things starts, how formulation of hypothesis, goes. What are the steps we are learning in this slide? So first, at the outset, what happens? We start collecting as many information as we can about something which we want to study, about the phenomena which we want to study. And once we collect, information and observations as much as possible about that phenomena, then we evaluate those observations and those information and look for possible causes of the problem. What are various causes? How this problem has taken place? And after doing this extensive work, what we do? We create a list of possible explanations. We can call them hypotheses. Tentatively, they are tentative hypotheses. They are not final hypotheses. At this point, we are dealing with the level of logical hypothesis. Create a list of possible explanations that might want to explore. If required, express in null and alternative hypothesis form to test that assumption mathematically. So here we try to crystallize what we have been thinking about, what we have been studying. Here we try to in fact reach a concrete question in the form of hypothesis. So if need be, if that's a quantitative study, we need to resolve that question into statistical hypothesis, which is known as null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis, H0, H1. And after doing this, we develop some possible hypothesis in the those hypotheses. We narrow down alternative of hypothesis to those hypotheses which can be tested. I mean, there in the beginning there may be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hypotheses we have made on the basis of observations, on the basis of information. But after revisiting them, after discussing with the guide, after discussing with the statisticians, after re-questioning those hypotheses, whether they are right or not right, whether they are good or not good, we finally reach those hypotheses which can be further statistically tested through experimentation. So that's how theoretically we can understand how we proceed to formulate hypothesis. One thing is noteworthy here, that null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis must be mutually exclusive. Mutually exclusive means part of one cannot be in the part of two. Part of one hypothesis cannot be part of two, and or vice versa. Both are mutually exclusive. If one is positive, another is negative. Something like that. Both cannot be true at the same time. If one is true, another is false. That is what the mutual exclusiveness is. But collectively they should cover all possibilities. That means if I say value of x is less than 1, this is null hypothesis say, then alternative hypothesis should be value of null hypothesis, value of x is either 1 or more than 1. This covers all the possibilities, because my null hypothesis was value of x is less than 1. So alternative hypothesis will become value of x is equal to or greater than 1. That means complete 360-degree coverage of the variable. All the value of universe can come for that if you combine both alternative and null hypothesis. So that does this sentence mean. Now let's take some examples here. We see how a research question can be converted into research hypothesis. For example, here we see research question is say what foods are considered to be comfort foods. For this research question, research hypothesis may be potato chips are considered comfort food, ice cream is considered comfort food. So this is how the question, what foods are considered to be comfort foods, be resolved to the research hypothesis. Let's take another question. When do people eat comfort foods? This question may be, converted into hypothesis. People eat comfort foods when they are in good mood. Another hypothesis may be people eat comfort foods when they are in a bad mood. So that research question can be converted into these hypotheses. And these two hypotheses are not complete. There may be n number of hypotheses we could have formulated. Let's take another research question. How do people become attached to comfort foods? Research question hypothesis may be people are attached to comfort foods that are consistent with their personality. Another hypothesis may be people are attached to the comfort foods because of past associations. So now we can see how a research question can be converted into research hypothesis. That's happening over here. So that is what we need to do. We need to resolve, or we need to convert a research question into research hypothesis. Now let's do it. How can we do it? Let's take one example and try to do it. Suppose we want to know why the leaves on the tree change color in fall. First, we would research this phenomena. We observe what we have seen happening outside. We read about this subject. We talk to the experts. We can do extensive literature review. We can do whatever possible to find out questions about this phenomena. We discover that color change happens when the temperature cools with the help of extensive work we have done. Now the question is, what question we can ask? What can be a research question? Let's say we have come to a research question like, does temperature cause the leaves to change color on the tree in my front yard or backyard? Does temperature cause, because we have reached to this certain conclusion in our study observations and all prior homework before formulating a research question and going towards research hypothesis. So the question may be, does temperature cause the leaves to change color on the tree? Now we can ask ourselves, can we test it? If it can be tested, then we can formulate a hypothesis which can be statistically tested. So like our question, does temperature causes leaves to change color on the tree? Can further be resolved to hypothesis like, if lower temperature cause leaves to change color and the temperature surrounding a tree is decreased, then leaves will change color. See, if lower temperature causes leaves to change color and the temperature surrounding a tree is decreased, that means if we decrease the temperature surrounding the tree and lower temperature causes leaves to change color, then the leaves will change color. This is what we want to test. So that is how the research question can be converted to the research hypothesis. Now this can be tested in controlled conditions or in natural conditions when weather changes. We can test it, or in controlled condition this can be tested. We can design an experiment and we can test it. Now let's take another example. Here we try to go deeper, little more deep. The question is, does brightness of light during studying affect students' performance? This is something which we want to check. This is a question in mind. This is, for example, a research question. Does brightness of light during studying affect students' performance? Now let's see what problem we can measure. One independent variable, another is dependent variable. Does brightness of light during the studying? So brightness of light is independent variable, and what depends on it is students' performance. So students' performance is dependent variable. There are two variables, as I told you in hypothesis. We make change in independent variable and try to study effects of that change onto the dependent variable. So here dependent variable is performance of a student and independent variable is brightness of light. But please note that brightness of light and studying the performance are vague terms. How can you study it? Brightness of light, to which light will you see bright, to which light will you see dim? Studying, during studying, how will you know how much someone studies, less, more, whether studies not, how will you studying, will you measure studying effect on a student's performance? So brightness of light and studying effect on study, two things are there. So these two terms are bright. You cannot, measure them. This is an operationalization issue. Many a time we come across such a questions, research questions, which comprise of such a vague terms or dependent variables which cannot be measured in that form. So what a researcher needs to do is to change those terms and terminologies in the form which can be measured. Just as we now try to find out ways to measure these variables, bright light and studying. How can we measure these variables, because these are vague variables? So we try to convert, we try to change the terms, like we can change the term bright light into the amount of light. Bright light cannot be measured, but amount of light can be measured. Amount of light, pay attention on the term. And studying cannot be measured, but test scores can be measured. Their performance in the form of test scores can be measured. So now, if we convert bright light to the amount of light and studying or performance of a student to the test scores, then these terms become measurable. Now dependent variables are measurable, which can be measured, which can be tested significantly, sufficiently. So now we can formulate hypothesis the way, if we increase the amount of light during studying. Pay attention on it. If we increase the amount of light during studying, then the participants' performance on test scores will decrease. If then. This is how we can formulate a hypothesis. Now we can test very well the effect of amount of light on the test scores. Both are measurable terms. So the hypothesis is, if we increase the amount of light during studying, then the participants' performance on test scores will decrease. So, hypothesis statement, as we have seen here, according to University of California, should be in the form of if-then statement. California University says that a hypothesis statement should be if-then statement. If I do this to an independent variable, then this will happen to the dependent variable. If I do this to the independent variable, then this will happen to the dependent variable. You can see here mentioned. This is mentioned here. So there should be if-then statements. Let's check several if-then statements of hypothesis as an example, as examples here. If you get at least 6 hours of sleep, then you will do better on tests than if you get less sleep. Another example, if you give patients counseling in addition to medication, then their overall depression scale will decrease. Another example, if you cover a wound with a bandage, then it will heal with less scarring. Another example, if you give exam in morning instead of at noon, then students' test scores will improve. One more example, if you drop a ball, then it will fall towards the ground. So California University says that the best hypothesis is one which can be expressed in if-then statement. But it's not like all the hypotheses are in the form of if-then statements, and if they are, they can be considered wrong. This is not the case. This is California University's version, but hypothesis may be in other forms as well, beyond even if-then statements. But they may not be called false until and unless they are false. Let's take some other other examples or hypotheses which can be called good or bad hypothesis. We can see a hypothesis to be good, and we will see a better hypothesis in that sense only. Let's take first example. Employees work differently under different light conditions. This is bad hypothesis. Why? We can have a good hypothesis like employees are more productive when working under bright lights than working under dim lights. So the second one is good hypothesis. This is not that vague. Another, driving performance of motorists varies when they talk on phone while driving. This is a bad hypothesis, example of bad hypothesis. How can this bad hypothesis be converted into good one? Motorists who talk on phone while driving will be more likely to make errors on a driving course than those who do not talk on phone while driving. Let's take another example. There is a bias in judiciary system. This is example of bad hypothesis. What can be a good hypothesis? In court trials, the juries will more likely to convict a male defendant than female defendant. Another example of bad hypothesis. A fighter pilot can be warned with either an auditory signal or a visual signal. See, either an auditory signal or a visual signal. Now, how can this statement be converted into good hypothesis? In detecting an enemy craft, a fighter pilot will react more quickly to an auditory warning signal than a visual warning signal. I mean, let's try hard to make our hypothesis, which has risk to be a bad hypothesis, to a good hypothesis. That we always try to do. For that we can help, literature review. For that we can help consult, statisticians. We can consult, experts of that. Now, we need to, convert hypotheses into mathematical expressions so as to test them statistically. So let's take one example, which we will try to convert into statistical hypothesis in mathematical expressions. A principal of a school claims that the students in his school are above average intelligence. Above average intelligent. A random sample of 30 students' IQ scores has a mean score of 110. Now, what hypothesis we can formulate? Population mean. This is case of population mean. Random sample of 30 students' IQ score has a mean score of 110. That is what? One more thing which is missing probably in this example, which is not visible here, that is, this is commonly accepted that if somebody has mean score of IQ, somebody has IQ level, IQ score 100, will be considered intelligent. That's missing in this example actually. Let me add it. So now, which is accepted generally, that is, population mean, that's 100. Which is commonly accepted that if IQ level is 100, the person will be considered intelligent. So the null hypothesis is like H naught colon mu equal to 100. This is null hypothesis, which actually we want to reject in favor of the principal's statement, because we try to test principal's claim that his students are above average intelligent. So the alternative hypothesis will become H1 colon mu is greater than 100. That is what. So these two hypotheses will be known as a statistical hypothesis. H naught mu equal to 100. Mu means population mean, which we need to we will try to reject it while testing, and alternative hypothesis will be H1 mu is greater than 100. So this is alternative hypothesis with the sign greater than, and for that, one tail test will be conducted. We will understand this one tail, two tail test in the last slide. Here bit we will try to understand, but in detail we will try to understand in next lecture. Another example is, say a report says the average MBA class of 216 of Great Idea Institute have an average education loan of rupees 5 lakhs. This a report says. Whereas the institute's director believes that their students have lower debt amount than reported. So how the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis will be formed? Null hypothesis, like theoretical hypothesis, will be like average loan of the students is rupees 5 lakh, what the report says, which in favor of the director's belief or thinking, we would try to reject through test. So against this, the alternative hypothesis will become in favor of the director's statement, that is the average loan of the students is less than rupees 5 lakh. This can be expressed mathematically like H naught mu equal to rupees 5 lakh, whereas H1 is mu is less than rupees 5 lakh. Alternative hypothesis is that loan amount is 5 lakh, null hypothesis is that loan amount is 5 lakh, which is as reported, whereas alternative hypothesis is loan amount is less than, average loan amount is less than rupees 5 lakh, which is director's claim. This is a less than hypothesis, which again relates to the one tail test. Let's take third example. Let's say a coffee manufacturing plant is producing bags of coffee that are labeled as 200 grams weight. Quality control randomly takes out a sample of 50 bags for accuracy check. So now what will be the null and alternative hypothesis? Let's see. Null hypothesis will be mu equal to 200, which will be tested in favor of, which is not equal to 200, because quality control check will test it so as to reject the null hypothesis, that is mu equal to 200. So the alternative hypothesis will become like mu is not equal to 200. Now this is not equal to alternative hypothesis, which actually relates to the two-tail test. Now let's cast a glance on the last slide, which shows you one-tail test and two-tail test and mathematical hypothesis formulated for that. First diagram, which shows the darker side, left side, is one-tail test, that is also known as left tail test. When alternative hypothesis has less than sign, then this is always left tail test, and this is always one tail test, and that too left tail test. Null hypothesis here is H naught mu equal to mu naught, whereas alternative is mu is less than mu naught. This is left tail test. Whereas at the extreme right we can see the right tail test, that 2 is one tail test that shows null hypothesis mu equal to mu naught, whereas alternative hypothesis mu is greater than mu naught. Here we can see the darker side is, the test side is right side. That's why this is known as right tail test. And in the middle we can see the null hypothesis mu equal to mu naught, whereas the alternative hypothesis is mu is not equal to mu naught. This means mu may be less than mu naught, or mu may be greater than mu naught. That's why test will be done on both sides of the graph of the distribution, frequency distribution. So this is both left and right side test. That's why this is known as two-tail test. Both tails are tested. So we will be understanding testing hypothesis in our next lecture. We will try to learn, but today we have learned formulation of hypothesis and just a bit of tail test. That's all for today. Thank you so much, learners. We will meet you in next lecture, which will be on to testing null and alternative hypothesis. Thank you so much.